Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Our guest says if you want to be successful, you have to be scrappy. Let's find out more from our guest, Yonas Hagos. Yonas, thanks for being with us today.
I appreciate you having me.
Yonas, you say in your book, and your book is From Scrappy to Self-Made, and you're kind of the old-fashioned success story, if I can say it that way, but you say immigrants actually have a leg up in the competition against native-born people. Most of us would think it's the opposite. Why do immigrants have a leg up?
I've been in the States for over 30 years, so I sometimes a lot of things cause certain things in my life to where I'm humbled. But part of it is we come from nothing. So when you come from a third world country where having running water or electricity is like considered wealth, you come to America, you can be the poorest, and you have these things that most people don't have around the world. You kind of like, okay, and if you're willing to work hard and follow the steps and process of as many immigrants have migrated to America, have become successful, you can become successful. It sounds a lot easier said than done, but from the country I come from, you don't have the opportunities America gives you. So for me, just seeing like, wait, all I got to do is work hard, take advantage of opportunities that come my way. I can become wealthy. It was a no-brainer. So us immigrants that come here with nothing, and this country gives us that opportunity, we take advantage of it. That's what I meant by that. And
before the show, we were talking, and just so our audience gets to know a little bit about it, about you and your lifestyle. Basically, you started out literally with nothing here, doing the lowest of low jobs, cleaning up at restaurants, things like this, and now you are the owner, and you said you were downsizing, so you own something like 40 to 50 franchises. Am I correct?
Yeah. I peaked at that, but I'm actually kind of downsizing just where things are at. I'm in a good place, but yeah, I peaked at 47. If you were to combine what I've had in the last 15 years, I probably had about 70 plus concepts. And I've had highs and lows. It's been a great journey for me, and I've enjoyed every bits and pieces of it, even sometimes the little roadblocks. But this country's given me an opportunity that I would have never gotten elsewhere. And I've traveled the world as well. When I was in the military, I was stationed in Europe. Europe's a phenomenal place to live in, but it's not like the United States of America.
That's great to hear. We hear so many negative things about the country and many places today, whether it's our hometown or just our local state. And to hear all those good things and to understand, too, that there still is opportunity out there. We think that everything costs so much. If you go to a ball game, someone said today a beer is $18. And that's probably a month's income in some countries. And to hear someone like yourself, a success story where you really made your life from the bottom up. You didn't inherit it. You didn't get lucky. You didn't hit a lotto ticket. You just literally worked hard, used good sense and brains and good business principles, and made them all pay off for you. So we want to learn from you today and find out. And now, you mentioned about finding your passion. We're hearing today from a lot of people on the show, they're looking for hot spots. Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, something that's going to make us $1 million by the end of the week, and we can retire next week. But that doesn't seem to be your lifestyle. How did you find your passion?
I mean, obviously, I'm 41 years old. I sound old now that I'm saying it. But so when I started in my era, and I've been in the United States since 92, the Bitcoins, NFTs, none of that stuff was relevant. I wish I knew back then, when it started, and in the early 2000s, I'd probably been a billionaire. But all I knew was hard work. My parents are immigrant, and I'm a son of immigrants. And so they said, hey, if you're willing to work hard, go to school, educate yourself, and save up your money and take advantage of opportunities and don't take corners, you can become successful. So, I talk to a lot of these young kids, they're like, hey, NFT, do you have Bitcoins? And I'm not knocking them down. I'm sure that's the way that as everything's going digital. Things are changing, but I have an old school mentality, just my upbringing and from the area I come from. I'll never forget what my dad told me. We were driving in the rural parts of the Chicagoland. He goes, "You see all this farm fields?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "The person that owns this or individuals are probably the wealthiest people." I'm like, "What?" I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "It's land. You can't make any more land. There's only so much real estate unless you go to the moon or Mars." So, and not knocking Bitcoin, NFT, those are great opportunities if you invest well, but real estate, brick and mortar, things that's tangible, you can touch. That's the way I was taught and trained, and that's how I was able to make a living.
Sounds like your father was a very smart man. He definitely got you on the right track. And again, it's the old way and when we say old way, it's almost funny, but it's not looking for an overnight success, because maybe you would have invested your money and a lot of these companies disappear the next week, or they find that they're a little fraudulent in there, and people who invested quite a bit of money now have zero in their bank account and spend their time fighting with lawyers, going to court, trying to recover something when they had money to invest. You mentioned a lot of great business principles, and I hope we can bring out a lot of them in the show today. And one of them we talked about before the show, you say you must attack problems before they emerge. Now, how do you know a problem before it emerges? You don't know next week that you might have a leak in one of the franchises and have to fix the roof, or that the boiler might go. So can you explain that a little more for the rest of us?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I can go to the basics. So we all have homes, or if you're renting or a car, they'll tell you, hey, every 3,000 or 5,000 miles, you need to get an oil change. It's called preventative maintenance. So if you've driven your vehicle for X amount of miles and you let it go past it, you're going to have problems. So oh man, it's going to hit 3,000 miles. I better go see, my local mechanic or shop. So in business, I'll give you an example. One of the Duncans I have, we have HVAC units on the rooftops, and every quarter you have to get the air filters changed and stuff, just preventative maintenance. And obviously, when I first started, I didn't know this stuff. I'm trying to figure out how to run the store and make payroll and deal with employees and service the customers. So when you have a unit go down or whatever, and then you call the tech and he goes, all you have to do is change your air filter, but now you didn't. It causes issues. So you learn these hard lessons just from trials and tribulations. So the things I mentioned in my book is just being proactive instead of reactive. So if okay, come summer, I got to get the filters changed. It's going to be a lot of dandelions blowing through the air and just pollen and stuff. So just basic stuff like that I've learned from running a business, or getting your equipment maintenance because, hey, we use the espresso machine and our customer counts is going up. So I may want to call the technician and do a regular PM on it. And so just things like that. I call them common sense. And you just learn. And
I think
usually when it hits you in the pocketbook, that's when you learn the hardest.
I think that's great, because so many of us, we forget to regularly change the oil in the car and give it good maintenance. And of course, the fellow at the maintenance station will tell us that if you do it every 6 months or 9 months or whatever the time limit is, you're going to get a much longer life out of your car. You're going to pay less in the end. But if you don't do it, you're going to be hurting the different mechanical parts of the car. It's not going to last as long because it's going to be straining on something else. So really just, again, good business principles. And I guess if someone is not alert to that, if they're not time conscious, they can either hire someone who does that, or today just put it on their computer calendar and say, whether it's 3 times a year or quarterly, check the maintenance, check the filters, do this, fix the floors, go out and have some pest control to make sure you don't have a major problem. So I love that, and I think it's good principles. One of the big things I noticed throughout your book, you say time cannot be wasted. And we had another immigrant on. He came to the country with 17 cents in his pocket. And much like yourself, in fact, I think his number of companies was in the 40s, but he was in the financial field. And his agent, I remember telling me, he drives me crazy. But that was a good sign, because that's what made him so successful, that even when he took a break, if he was on the beach, he was making telephone calls. If he was riding in a car. How do you find, what are some tricks you can tell us that you get the most out of your time each day?
So each human being that lives on planet Earth has 24 hours and 365 days a year, per calendar year, the way we count our days. And we're all living on borrowed time, as my dad would say, and my mom as well. And time is the most valuable asset we have. I used to have people say, "What's your time worth?" Back then, I said, "Oh, we're X amount, X amount." As I've gotten older and obtained more success, I realized time is very valuable. 5 minutes ago, or an hour ago, or yesterday, we cannot get back. So I like to use my time wisely. And people like me and a lot of entrepreneurs will tell you there's not enough time in the day. When I used to be a 9 to 5, I worked for someone, you look at the clock, you're like, oh, it's only 10 a.m. I don't get off to 5. When you're an entrepreneur, you look at the time, you're like, it's 4:50 and I got to go home, pick up my son, or I got to go do this. You don't have enough time in the day. So I value my time. Money comes and goes, but if you lose money, you can make it, but it takes time to make money. So time to me is the most valuable asset we have as human beings on earth. And I cherish every minute of it.
I can see that and looking at you, and I can see the look on your face, and I'm sure you do. We want to find out more, but at this point in the show, we want to let our audience know that you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Our guest today is Yonas Hagos. He is the author of From Scrappy to Self-Made. And Yonas, we're going to ask you, can you tell us your website if we want to learn more about you?
Sure. It's www.yonaschagos.com. It's YONASHAGOS.com.
And because this is so impressive and really can be a life changer for a lot of people in our audience, we're going to ask you this again in the show. So if someone didn't get that down, or if you want to check the spelling, I will ask our guest to give you both the spelling of his name and the book, From Scrappy to Self-Made, so you can be one of his competitors someday and give him a run for his money, and both of you will be on the show. Yonas, you mentioned in your book that basically the American model is most of us go to work for a company. And is it too easy to do that and get a good pension and a health plan? And, we all hear people saying that today, oh, I can't give this up. If I work 20 years or 15 years, I'm going to have a health plan. I have a pension. I get 2 months off a year or 2 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever. Is that too tempting instead of going your route?
It depends who you ask. So I was one of those individuals, and people thought I was crazy. I worked for a big company, a Fortune 500 company, made a lot of money. I'd probably be a lot further ahead. I had the pensions, all the benefits. But since a young boy, being an immigrant, my parents instilled in me, this is America, the land of opportunities, and you can become whatever you want to. And I always wanted to become an entrepreneur. So for me, 9 to 5 or working a full-time job with benefits, although it was good, I was not happy. I made a lot of money, but it's just I wanted to be my own boss. Now, obviously, when I became my own boss, I realized, maybe it was a lot easier, working my 9 to 5, because once 5 o'clock comes, no one bugs me. And once I'm on vacation, no one bugs me. But, play hard, you can win hard, as I like to say it. But it all depends. I get a lot of people that ask me like, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur. I go, okay, well, why? Well, because I want to make money. I want to have I'm like, okay, well, do you make good money? Yeah. Are you willing to get up at 2 a.m. and take a phone call on Christmas break? Thanksgiving, well, what do you mean? I'm like, and are you willing to take a pay cut? You're going to be the last person to get paid. Well, I said, it takes time to get to where I'm at, or to the people that are successful, like the Jeff Bezos, the Bill Gates, and we can name thousands of people that are very successful. But when you have people answer those questions and they say, you know what, I think you're right. I do like my 9 to 5. It's not for everyone, but if you're willing to go through the ropes, you can become very successful and have, financial freedom.
That's a great point you made, that we've had numerous entrepreneurs on. We've been on for 35 years, but I don't think anyone said that, saying that you brought up there. The entrepreneur is the last one to get paid. And if I think you even mentioned you started out with one store, it was doing very well. And the next year there were a lot of snowstorms and adverse weather. And all of a sudden the money that was coming in, people aren't going to go into a Dunkin' Donuts just if it's snowing or if it's difficult to get out of the car, or a storm, an ice storm, etc. And there were adverse consequences for a while. And of course, who takes the hit? It has to be you, the boss, right?
Oh, yeah, of course. We got to make sure everyone's paid. We're the last ones to get paid.
Now, did you have any mentors along the way, or were there any books you read, or any even important people, whether it might be an accountant or a lawyer or someone who gave you advice that kept you on this track?
I've had a lot of mentors. I've had people I've grown up with. I've known personally in the Section 8 housing that become very successful entrepreneurs. Obviously, I've looked up to Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Michael Jordan, people that become successful. Like Michael Jordan's a prime example. Although he was a phenomenal athlete, then when he became, after retirement, he became a phenomenal business person. And I've always looked at that. And then just the way he practiced and worked hard, he applied those, values he had and hard work towards where he's at now. So
now, let me ask you, are you ever not working? Do you say, you know what, I'm going to take off the last week in June or the first week in December, or every Saturday morning from 9 to 2, I'm going to take off and, I don't know, go to a ball game or go to the beach or something?
It's funny you say that. It's a good question. Last couple of years, the pandemic has kind of beat me up, staffing and all that stuff. And I have 2 kids and they're growing up real fast. So weekends have become kind of my time off. I mean, I get calls if there's an issue at the stores, but I've gotten to the point where I'm like, once Friday 5 p.m. hits or 6 p.m., unless it's an emergency, people leave me alone. I like that. And I'm one of those, I can't sit still. That's one of my problems. But I've learned how to kind of enjoy a day off, like on a Sunday if I'm barbecuing or watching a football game with friends or, hanging out with my kids. So I'm learning how to enjoy the time off, but it's hard.
Now, and you're one of those people who look like you could be in any position, either the principal of a school, a teacher, a doctor, an entrepreneur, or even someone in TV. What do they call them? The newscasters or the anchormen, etc. So you have that personality and the look that you could fit into any group. So I'm sure there's going to be some more in your future, and I think you're going to be a motivational speaker, because I think based on this book, you've really got getting people back to the old school way of doing it: work hard and be successful. You mentioned a saying I haven't heard in many years now, and it's funny. When we first started our show 35 years ago, almost every entrepreneur brought this up, but you say the customer is always right. Is that still the philosophy today?
Okay. Well, I'm going to try to be funny. No, but yes. No. So, yes, the customer is always right. And obviously we can argue that, but, most guests, obviously social media, and then just we have many avenues of where guests can take advantage of the system, but 99% of the guest complaints I've had are legitimate. Now, some can get out of control. So I've always had that mentality. And even if the customer's not right, there's right ways of approaching them, and where they may get humbled and say, you know what, you're right. I was wrong. But I always tell my staff, listen, give them the benefit of the doubt and listen to them, because you will get humbled sometimes when you realize, oh, yeah, I made the mistake. I gave you the wrong coffee or whatever it is.
And those magic words, I think people just like it when someone listens. Today, I called up an insurance company. I didn't speak to a live person. I talked continually to a machine. And they did the job. We had a successful resolution. It was just a matter of getting a payment in on time, etc. But it's still a pleasure to talk to a real person. And if they literally are listening to what I'm saying, well, that's a win for both sides. You've got a long-term customer, and I've solved the problem that I have. So we're both coming out ahead. You said people used to find you intimidating, and you actually changed your personality because of that. How did you do that?
So it's a good question again. My freshman year, I had a high school Spanish teacher named Miss Henry. And I guess, I have high cheekbones being Ethiopian. And if I don't smile, I kind of look intimidating. And it's not, I don't do it on purpose. So she goes, Yonas, are you mad? I go, no, Miss Henry, I'm not mad. She goes, well, you have beautiful high cheekbones. You have a beautiful. So that always resonated with me. And obviously, I became a combat veteran, soldier, and all that. And in the business, when you're a boss, I didn't know it. As a boss, you become intimidating, but I never saw myself to be that. The boss, like that wears the suit, comes in there. If I come into a restaurant that's busy, I roll my sleeves. First thing I do is see where the bottleneck is at, either the sandwich station or I go do dishes. So when I learned how to smile and approach people, and they realize, man, when I hear of you, you have X amount of stores. I see you to be intimidated, and I meet you, and you smile and shake my hand. You talk to me like a regular human being. I'm like, so I've always kept that in back of my head that, hey, you know, come with the title and my accomplishments, and I don't see it that way personally, but it comes out very intimidating for the average person.
And if I heard you correctly, you just said you, the owner of the franchise, and let's use a Dunkin' Donuts, for example, if you walk in and it's busy, you'll jump in the kitchen and do the dishes. You'll get back and get your hands dirty or do whatever has to be done to alleviate the backup or help the staff and keep the process moving. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And people respect you that way. We have a saying in the military, you lead from the front, not from the back. It's easy to yell and bark orders, but when they see you front in line and they have no excuse why they can't, keep up with you and get the work done.
Once again, I want our audience to know that if you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Our guest today is Yonas Hagos. He is the author of From Scrappy to Self-Made. Wonderful book. And if you're thinking of being an entrepreneur or you want to get into your own business, this is I can't pick a better book to get started with, to read this and to know what's involved. And Yonas, we're going to ask you, is there a website where we can find out more?
Yes, there is. www.yonashagos.com, which is spelled YONASHAGOS.
And again, I love that title, From Scrappy to Self-Made. It's kind of an old-fashioned read, but you see, if you want to have even one franchise, and Yonas has 40 to 50 of them, if you do this, it's going to work out for you. You have a saying, you talk about using people's no's, and by that we mean N-O, the word no, when someone says no, using that to come up with solutions. Can you talk about that? Because I think that's a great saying, something where someone would just say to you no, yet instead of fighting with them, you look for a solution that's, I guess, a win-win for both sides.
No, so I learned this in my earlier days of entrepreneurship, and I wasn't a salesperson, but I've learned when you're selling, you're not only just selling a product, you're selling yourself. So obviously you get, you're doing the door knocks, no. And I had someone go, listen, I've been in sales for X amount of years. When someone's telling you no, it means no at this point. It doesn't mean no for tomorrow. So find a way to kind of find some common ground. So when someone would say no, I'd be like, well, do you not want the product? Is there something wrong? And they'll be like, well, it's just, I have enough of it. And I just had, you're like, oh, well, how many weeks of supply do you have? And I don't, and you got to learn how to read people. And then it'll be like, well, I think, you know what? Why don't you come back next week? Sure. And when's a good time to come by? I don't want to bug you. Sounds like you're busy right now. And you break the barrier right there. And now, but back then when they say no, I'd get intimidated, put my head down and walk away. But once I saw that worked, I'm like, they're telling me no now, but that no is going to become a yes. I'll come back next week or the month after. And then you get a sale and so on and so on. So I've applied that in my day-to-day life.
I like that, tying it together. The no is a no now, but next week it can change. And if you come back or do something slightly different, everything can be different. You say the struggle is the success. When you're having a bad day, is it easy to accept that rule, or do you want to throw it out the window?
So, that's one of my sayings, and the part of the struggles and the journey, to get to your destination. Sometimes when you're an entrepreneur or just, if you got a job or you got a project, you forget to enjoy the journey or the struggle. You got to embrace the struggle. It's, if it comes easy, it's not going to last forever. So I've learned how to, and even though it sucks sometimes you're struggling, but when you get to your destination and you go back and say, you know what, it did suck. I went through these struggles, but I see why I did, and it's got me to where I'm at. So you learn how to enjoy the journey along the way. Success.
How would you say the mind of an entrepreneur is different? If we're thinking, hey, I could take that good job, it gives me a nice income, but I'm always going to be making roughly that amount that I'm starting with, give or take a little bit more for inflation, a few raises, or be an entrepreneur. What makes your mind and other entrepreneurs that you work with different?
Well, to be an entrepreneur, you got to be a type A personality, it's a go-getter. You don't, no one needs to tell me to get up at 4 a.m. or to do this and that. And you got to be half crazy. I say that to people, when I tell people when I left a very successful career with a 6-month old baby, a mortgage, and a wife to go make a fraction of what I did and struggle and live out of a cheap motel to build my store. People say, man, you're crazy. Well, craziness paid off. So you kind of have to be a little bit whacked out, as I like to say, but we're wired different. It's either you have it or you don't, and you got to have grit.
It sounds so, and it sounds like it's not for everybody, even though we would all like the benefits that come with it, the accolades, the publicity, the more money. What are some of the typical mistakes you see in either the competition or other entrepreneurs or people coming up the line today?
I'll go off of my experience, and I've seen some of the mistakes, but, in the beginning, you want things to happen fast. We all watch movies and stuff or see successful people, the guy pull up in a nice BMW or Ferrari, but no one goes back to see what it took that person to get there. And so patience is a virtue, and that's one of the key to being an entrepreneur. You have to be patient. You have to put countless hours in, and you have to risk it all. It's go big or go home. And that is what got me to where I'm at, and gotten a lot of entrepreneurs. And a lot of Hail Marys.
I like that. That's a great point you make, though. We don't see the bad side. We just see the man or woman. They come out there in a lovely dress or a suit or a tuxedo or something, and they're on a TV show, and they look perfectly groomed and happy and content. Oh, gee, that's wonderful. I would like that person to be me. But we don't know that at the same time their stomach might be grinding because they're hoping the loan will come through, or they have to pay off the mortgage on a building, or they have to fire 2 or 3 people tomorrow, maybe close an office or a plant, all of the things that come with entrepreneurship. Yonas, this has been a wonderful show. I really enjoy talking to you. I think you are going to be a public speaker in the future because you have such a nice voice. But before we wrap up, I want our audience to know the book is From Scrappy to Self-Made by our guest, Yonas Hagos, Hagos. And once again, give us that website.
Website is www.yonaschagos.com. YONASHAGOS.
Yonas, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like our audience to know you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.